Cinematographer Paul Ridgey is behind the camera here. And this is what you see here over the course of the last 15 minutes. This is a systematic push to push people away here from the scene. You saw Capitol Police work their way down and pick the individuals up one at a time physically from their seats on one. I don't think it's question in the last week. That is one member of Congress, former president.
Ready to go. Okay, welcome to the January 6th, 2021 special meeting of the Attleboro School Building Committee. This will be a relatively short meeting. It will not be in place of our regularly scheduled meeting coming up in 2 weeks, correct, Jeremy?
Correct.
That'll be 2 weeks from tonight. But this is solely because we need to act on the substantial completion for the Western Fields. And so, as always, we'll start with a call of the roll to determine that we have a quorum. Jeremy?
All right, Dave Sawyer?
Here.
Jason?
Here.
Lori?
Here.
Jackie?
Here.
Kelly?
Here.
Bill?
Here.
Terry?
Here.
Scott?
Here.
Ed? Here. Mark? Rob?
Here.
Steve? Mike? Andrew?
Here.
Gail? Jack?
Here.
And the mayor?
Here.
Paul, do you want me to preside? I think that was a yes. I think he's muted.
I'm sorry. Yes, I just muted myself. That was a yes.
Okay.
All
right.
See Gail Clark joined as well.
Oh, and Gail
Hi.
Clark joined as well. Did you, so we have a quorum, and the only order of business tonight is the Western Field substantial completion. I'm not sure, is this Craig, is this Joe, is this Steve Johnson? Who's going to take the lead here?
Joe Milani's on the line. I don't know if Steve wants to speak. Steve?
Yeah, it'd probably be a joint effort, Jack. So essentially, it's substantial completion of the Western Fields, which includes the field itself, the fencing, the ball netting, all the accessories that go with the Western Field. What it means is warranties kick in and the school/city takes control and ownership and of the entire field and securing it and all that good stuff. So KBA has come and done their punch list, their inspection of the work. It's monetized. It's part of the paperwork package. They were on site yesterday. We talked about it today during our owner meeting, and our side is all in agreement with what's presented in the paperwork, and we're just asking for the formal vote of substantial completion.
And we have reviewed it with Skanska also as part of our review today in our meetings.
And Mary Ann, you're satisfied as well?
Yes, I am. I think the work is complete. We understand there are a couple of items that are typical at this point in time. So I would recommend approval.
Yeah, so just so everyone understands, by accepting substantial completion, then at the next requisition, the retainage will be reduced from 5% to whatever the monetized value is of the punch list. Understand that on the punch list, there are a couple of items. One is that the bubbler at the field cannot be connected yet because the water has not been connected, and that will be a substantial amount of time before that occurs. Also, we want to make sure that the grass that was planted this fall grows appropriately in the spring, and so that's on the punch list. There may be a couple of other minor items, Joe?
Those two items, Jack, are excluded from the substantial completion certificate, and so not included in the punch list actually. Those items will be reviewed at a later date when they're in the spring for the planting, so that we know that it's acceptable, and we'll review it then. And the water bubble will be reviewed when that becomes online, when we have water from the building. So at that time, we'll do a separate substantial completion certificate for those items, probably within the phase of the work that's ongoing at that time. There are probably, I think, 18 items on the list right now, all ranging from changing washers to non-rusting washers, or scrapes on paint to adjusting fencing or stuff like that. Some of the stuff is like for the ball netting is sizable in cost, but will be removed from the punch list almost immediately once those are turned over to the owner formally tomorrow.
And we then need to add this to our insurance. So Jeremy, or perhaps Mark Furtado, is that in process?
Yeah, so once I get the certificate of substantial completion and the SBC recommends to the mayor to accept, then I'll process it through our finance team with Mark and on the city side to get that added.
Okay.
So both myself and Steve Johnson have signed the SC certificate, and we'll forward it over to Mayor Haru for signature once this committee approves it tonight.
Yeah, make sure to please copy me on that as well, Joe.
I will. Mhm.
Thank you.
Okay, you know, we've all seen, I don't think Steve needs to share his screen tonight. We've all seen it. The field is absolutely stunning. And this will allow the city to begin to use those fields almost immediately. We'll leave that up to the city's rec department and to the school department as to how that's handled in the normal course of things. So are there any questions or comments from the school building committee members?
I've got a question. What was the total dollar value on the entire punch list?
$188,200.
Okay. Are there any items that would be so small that it's not worth the contractor to go back and replace? Like if it costs more to go replace them and they never replace them, is it going to look, are they going to cause rust marks or anything like that?
We as I explained this afternoon, we evaluate the cost on the punch list as if the owner had to go out and hire someone to do it themselves rather than the contractor doing it. So believe me, I think that Kinsella can attest to this, that it's never less than what is worth the contractor doing the work. Okay. Plus, so plus this contractor is on the job for another 2 years doing landscaping, so he's not going to walk away.
Yeah, actually, Andrew, all the work that's on the punch list, all the subcontractors involved still have other work in other phases of the project, so they're not going anywhere.
No.
Okay. That was my only question. Thank you.
No, we always try and make it worth their while to complete the work.
Yeah. All right, thanks.
Okay, anybody else have any questions or comments? All right, hearing none, then Jackie, a motion is in order to recommend to the mayor the acceptance of substantial completion for the Western Fields as of January 6th, 2021.
So moved.
Second.
Thank
you. Any further discussion?
Nope. I will forward that over to the mayor.
We have to vote first, Joe.
Oh, geez. Okay, I won't do it then.
So Jeremy, please call the roll.
Don't worry, Joe. I wasn't checking my email this second, so you're all right. All right, Dave.
Yes.
Jason.
Yes.
Jackie.
Yes.
Jerry.
Yes.
Kelly.
Yes.
Bill.
Yes.
Terry.
Yes.
Scott.
Yes.
Ed.
Yes.
Rob.
Yes.
Andrew.
Yes.
Gail.
Yes.
Jack.
Yes.
And Mayor.
Yes.
Okay, I don't think we have any other business to accomplish this evening for the school building committee. So unless anybody has anything else to say, we'll call for a motion, Jackie, to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Jeremy, call the roll.
Dave.
Yes.
Jason.
Yes.
Jackie.
Yes.
Jerry.
Yes.
Kelly.
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
Terry,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Ed,
Yes.
Rob,
Yes.
Andrew,
Yes.
Gail,
Yes.
Jack,
Yes,
and Mayor.
Yes.
we are adjourned at 5:40. Thank you all for taking the time to make this happen. And in a moment, we will convene the Municipal Building Commission. Jim, are you going to
As a reminder,
up a screen, or are we just going to keep going?
we're not SBC next week. Our SBC meeting for January is the week after next.
That's correct.
Just want to remind everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you all.
Okay,
All right,
thank you and good night.
good night. All right, then I want to call the Municipal Building Commission to order on January 6, 2021 at 5:40. And unfortunately, Jeremy, we need to call the roll to establish a quorum again.
Should have brought a throat lozenge.
Yeah.
Terry,
Yes.
Jerry,
Yes.
Ed,
Yes.
Mike, Jackie,
Yes.
Andrew. Andrew Simpson,
You're muted. Ed.
Yes. Present.
Gail,
Yes.
Kelly,
Here.
Jack.
Here. Okay, we have a quorum. All right. We don't have a whole lot of business to do tonight, but we do have some exciting projects coming up. So the first thing we need to do, unfortunately, is we're going to have to call the roll again because, Jackie, we need a motion to approve the December 2nd, 2020 minutes.
Move to approve. Second.
Thank you. Jeremy?
Terry,
Yes.
Jerry,
Yes.
Ed,
Yes.
Jackie,
Yes.
Andrew,
Yes.
Gail,
Yes.
Kelly,
Yes.
Jack.
Yes. Motion passes unanimously. As always, we'll skip over the bills. And I think we're going to go right to the Brennan Wamsutta Roof Project. I see Susan is on with us
Rich Gorham as well.
and Rich Gorham as well.
Yes.
So do you want to give us your report?
Sure. We are complete. We have our final requisition submitted to you this evening. We've submitted to Jeremy all of the releases and the surety release, and I believe Rich has the thumb drives with the closeout documents that he's going to be getting to Jeremy and Jason. And I think, Rich, do you have anything else you want to speak to?
So probably we should just cover a couple things. I know in the last meeting, we brought up the subject. There was an issue with the ridge at the Brennan Middle School. Okay. That issue has been resolved. Okay. So there's no further leaks on that. And that was an issue, a contractor issue of not installing it the way it was designed. So that issue has been resolved and Jason's confirmed that it's no longer an issue. But what has popped up, what did pop up afterwards was an issue over at Wamsutta School with one of the walls, okay? And that issue, which we've gotten our hands around, we're pretty sure we know what's causing it, and we've made some fixes. There's an issue with water still coming through the wall in the corridor, which is adjacent to the gymnasium and the mechanical room space. There was a leak that went probably about 44 feet up the hallway and took out a lot of ceiling tiles. Originally, we would have thought it would have been, some sort of an issue with the masonry, but well, actually, it isn't. There is an issue with the masonry beyond what was in the original scope of work, and what appears to be happening is under certain wind-driven rain conditions. Okay, not every rainstorm, water is coming through the masonry, more specifically the mortar joints, okay? We did identify some deficiencies, once the water is getting in the wall, in the through wall that MDM just finished replacing. And we had MDM out there the day, a couple days before the new year started. We opened up the masonry and we made some repairs to that, okay? But the issue we have right now is just under certain rain events, you're going to still have that problem with the mortar joints. The water is just going through the mortar joints, and it's not an issue that the mortar is cracking. It could be just the quality of the mortar from the original construction of the building. Okay, the same condition doesn't exist though at the Brennan School in the same location. At least we haven't received any reports of that.
So what, in your professional opinion, should we be doing, Rich?
Okay, so yeah, no, I'm getting, so I have that for you. I spoke with Andy Barr about this, and right now, the recommendation we have is that maybe we should consider treating the particular walls in question with a siloxane water repellent on the wall, okay? So what that basically would do is it has to be, installed at a temperature of 32 degrees above, and it's got to hold that. You have to have temperatures above that for at least 8 hours to do it. So this time right now of year is not the time to actually do it because we're just not we're not going to be able to maintain that type of temperature. The brick has got to be warm for it to be installed. Okay, what we think will happen is by doing this, we would you'd be treating the wall, and where the hope would be is that we'd be able to reduce the amount of water that's passing through the mortar joints by about 75 to maybe 85 or 90%. Okay. We don't think it's going to take care of it 100%, but it would significantly reduce the amount of water that is occurring. And typically to do something like that, and unfortunately, I just got some of this the data sheets and stuff very late this afternoon, so I haven't had a chance to send this along to even Susan yet, but you can expect it probably roughly between a 7 and 10 year lifespan by applying this to the wall. Okay, so at the end of that, you would have to retreat the wall. The other thing we could look at, but this might want to consider doing this outside of the project, would be to go ahead and do something more, a deeper investigation into the mortar joints, and testing and that type of thing to see, if it's something that, is eventually will have to be treated, but it could eventually involve, a complete repointing of the wall, even though you don't have cracked or deteriorated mortar joints, to replace the present mortar joints with something a little bit better. So,
my inclination is that we should be looking at the permanent fix. By Susan, do you have an opinion on this issue?
Well, based on the temperatures, it's something we can't address right now. And I mean, we're only really seeing it in those wind-driven events. So I don't think we're at risk for the next, few months. But definitely this spring, we should be doing something, either the coating or some sort of, testing and replacement. We don't want to damage what we've already, corrected. And, you really want these to be done for the next, 30 years.
I can see that Jason Parento is on with us. Jason, do you have an opinion on this issue?
Yeah, I mean, of course, for me, Jack, I'm looking for, a long-term solution, considering, that this potentially could be a problem. And as Rich said, it's really only under certain circumstances, but when it does happen, it seems to be significant. Especially not the last time, but the time before, it impacted, it's close to 30 stained tiles were the results. So yeah, of course, I'd be looking for a long-term solution if that were possible. But I certainly think what Rich is suggesting is also feasible in the short term. But, if I had my choice, I would say a more long-term solution.
So commission members, it sounds like there's nothing we can do right now, but do you want to weigh in with questions or comments or your preferences?
I have a question.
Go ahead, Joe.
Do we know what the cost would be associated to do a siloxane treatment?
So that could be about $3 to $6 per square foot. Okay, so it's a 2-coat application. And then, so that would be, roughly, and that's designed, that repellent can almost be done, doesn't have to be done by, the roofer here. In this case, this can be done by maintenance personnel. Not that I want to add stuff to Jason's list of things to do. It is a maintenance type of item, but it certainly can be done by a roofer or a mason. So it could be done outside of the project. If you have to decide that you want to go to a full-blown pointing project, we're talking, just so you know, the costs are probably in the $20 to $25 per square foot range right now, roughly, without getting some accurate estimates.
And what kind of square footage are we talking about, Rich?
On that particular, I think the wall that we're talking about is about, I want to say it's about 2,500 to 3,000 square feet in size right now. So it's only 2 walls, though. You're not doing the whole perimeter wall. It's one end wall and one long wall. So if anybody can envision the back of the Wamsutta School, where the highest mechanical, that wall is, it's this stepped wall where you see the step flashing, that wall, and then the one on going down the left side towards the front of the building. And it's the one on the left side going towards the front of the building is where, the greatest majority or bulk of this water damage is occurring, to the ceiling tiles. Now, when we were out there last week, we did take out, we did the fixes that we needed to do, and the contractor replaced all of the ceiling tiles in that corridor. Okay, because there were a couple things. There were 3 areas that he felt that he was responsible for. So he has addressed those for now, but those tiles are just going to get wet again during the next, wind, under the right wind-driven rain event.
So we're talking somewhere from 25,000 to 75,000 to fix this problem?
Potentially, yes, potentially. I mean, but we need to do a further investigation and sampling of the mortar and testing of the mortar to find out why that happened. Probably should be done. So that way we can determine what needs to be done to correct that.
Okay. Any other commission members have questions or comments?
One more question I have, Gail.
Go ahead.
So we could start doing that investigation, sooner than later instead of waiting till warmer weather, right? Is that something we could start doing now?
We could, yeah, we'd have to generate a proposal for our scope because we're now way outside, I'm outside of the scope, but I don't see why not. What I'll have to do is I'll speak with Andrew Barr about it and just see what's going to be involved in doing that, and what testing. We're going to have to just get some pricing to, for testing if that's what we decide is going to be the final solution. But yes, I mean, it could be done I think it can be done over the winter. I don't see a problem with that.
So we would need an amendment to your contract, and we probably need an amendment to Skanska's contract too, Susan, correct?
Correct. But I would think that we would need to sort of release the roofer at this point.
Well, that was my next question, because we have a final pay rec on the list of bills. So are both of you recommending to us that we accept that final pay rec and release them from the job, and whatever we do in the future, it will be by a separate process, depending on the size and scope of the work?
That's what I would think so, because if we can, determine that this paint type product is going to be the right fix, you would not necessarily have to pay the roofer or the mason to do that work. So you might find a cheaper alternative. And if it's a much larger scope, if it's, all this repointing, and that would require another bid.
Yeah, no, and I'm the same with Susan on this. It's probably a good idea to release MDM from this at this point. They have submitted all of the closeout paperwork that I have asked them for. So I certainly don't have a problem with that. And I believe that they have resolved all the roofing issues. And the leakage that we're having is a masonry wall higher up above the through wall. It's not gonna, I don't believe it's gonna impact the roof itself. I don't see any way for the water to get in that way. The water is clearly getting into the wall cavity itself at this point.
Okay, before we move from this issue, because there are two other things I want to ask about, any further questions or comments from commission members?
I have a question regarding mold. Is mold an issue at all?
In the wall right now, I don't believe it is. Let's put it this way. I didn't see any evidence when we had opened up the brick, just before New Year's. So I didn't see any evidence of that. Now, what I would say to you about that is there's a waterproofing that goes over that CMU block, which is behind the brick. So if there's something trapped in there, I wouldn't be able to answer that question honestly. I think the water went through so fast, and I think the wall dried out pretty well, and the weep holes worked so well. I don't think it had an opportunity to do it, unless it was mold growth from the previous, from before when we started roof replacement operations there.
But if it's an issue that's not taken care of, wouldn't it just continue to grow if it's potentially there?
I don't know how, on mold, I don't know how to answer that question, whether it's going to grow or more. I don't want to mislead you here. So I have to defer on that. I just don't have the proper answer for you on it.
I think your point, Terry, is a good one, that we need to make sure that we address if there's any mold in whatever solution we choose.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Anybody else have anything? Okay, then the heat trace, was that completed successfully?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
And that was done by a separate electrician, correct?
Correct, through MDM.
Yeah, okay. And then we also, at the last meeting, had talked about the problem of leaves over at Brennan. And Jeremy, we have an update on the tree issue over there?
Yeah, so since the last time we spoke with the commission, I spoke with the mayor, and he's consistently hesitant to bring down trees across the city. But when they prove to be a nuisance to buildings, it's kind of more amenable, so long as we find a suitable replacement for what's there. So as we discussed in the last NBC meeting, there are trees that are tall and wide and disrupting the gutters. So he's given his approval to remove those trees, so long as they're replaced by some sort of comparable replacement on the campus, or some sort of lower, less invasive shrubbery around the campus, or in the exact spot. So I've been working with Derek Corsi to figure out what that looks like. But the mayor has endorsed the plan that we talked about here last time.
So we will not need to deal with the issue of potentially putting leaf guards into the gutters.
That's
okay.
Good.
Yeah, I agree. So before we move on from this project, is anybody have anything else?
I have one more question for Jeremy. MDM had asked me about the payment for the last requisition, number 6. Do you know if that's in process with signatures?
Yeah, the last change order got held up through DocuSign and vacations and holidays and that sort of thing. So it's, yes, we have it. I spoke earlier with a couple of folks to make sure we can muscle it through. And if not this week, then definitely next week. I would like to get them both paid at the same time, actually. So yeah, it was hang up with the change order, but we should be moving shortly.
Okay, great. Yeah, I told them, Thanksgiving and Christmas holidays, they end up, disrupting all those signatures. So I'll let them know.
Yep.
Okay, then anybody have anything else on this project, or should we move on to the library? All right, thank you, Susan. Thank you, Rich. And I guess we'll probably see you in the future on this project.
Yeah, it sounds as though that is the case.
Yeah.
So. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. I appreciate working with everybody.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on. The library. Evan, you're up at bat.
Excellent. How we doing, folks?
Good. And just for the record, I can see that Amy is here, who is the acting library director. Is that your correct title? And Deb Robinson's here, who is our architect. Doesn't appear that Charlie Oliver has joined us unless I missed him. But in any event, go ahead, Evan.
Okay. Just general project update. We are on schedule, technically one day ahead. The contractor provides us with schedule updates each month. Requisition 2 is before you for approval tonight. The amount of 98 some odd $1,000. That puts us at 12% complete at the library. The contractor has continued to mobilize, put up staging, and start some work. And let me see if I can't share my screen to walk you through some of that.
Jim Jones says you can go ahead.
Okay. Is that up for everyone?
It is. Library doesn't look quite as beautiful as it did before we started.
Oh, so we will get to a beautiful photo, I assure you. So this is generally, this is from the Literacy Center side. We can see some scrim covered temp fencing and whatnot. That's the contractor's laydown area. And all of this scaffolding has been erected around the old building and some portions of the newer addition so that we can get access to the work. One big item, we have got these decorative balconies that have been, that need to get restored. Those have been gingerly removed from their nesting place at the library and taken to the metalworker's shop. And they're currently in the process of figuring out some of the best ways to strip these balconies without damaging them. And we are have been trying to schedule a visitation to the shop to actually take a look at some of the test samples that folks have done. So here's the beautiful shot that you may not get to see. So we actually have the scaffolding, and this kind of shows you kind of some of the things that we're dealing with and getting access to correcting and restoring some of this beautiful building. This is actually some masonry cleaning mock-ups on a portion of the 93 addition. There's some different samples. You can see the darker sections here, existing, and then various either different products or sometimes double applications and whatnot. So we have gone through at least some initial masonry cleaning mock-ups. We're awaiting some better weather to do some larger sections actually at the original building. So we're getting ready and in fact have started some of the re-roof work. This was from last week. We've got some insulation, some membrane roofing, and some protection board. So one of the things that I will get to when I talk about some of the potential changes are we've taken a look at, and while our documents and current contract call for some minimal replacement of the 1993 a window here or there and replacing some glazing. There were some discussions about should we do some more aggressive testing on the units that are there, and the number of units and the age. We would end up spending a significant amount of money to try to test these windows that at least our architect's consultant is telling us will likely be failing. So one of the potential changes that we're considering and trying to get priced up is to actually replace the aluminum clad wood windows and some other assemblies at the 1993 edition. So over on the left here is fairly standard lower level, mid-level and upper level window grouping. So these are kind of the standard types that we would have elsewhere around the building. And then this is actually the main entry. That's a combination of some storefront doors and similar kind of wood window systems there. So this is to kind of show some of the types of things, the window replacement that we're currently getting pricing on, that we should have for you at next month's meeting with an actual hard number, and asking for a decision to move forward with that or not.
Do we have an order of magnitude that what we're talking about here, Evan?
Yeah, I think we're talking about $400,000 or $500,000 worth of work. I came up with my own kind of separate rough order of magnitude and did finally get some numbers from our contractor today. Granted, I think he's being conservative with the numbers. Anyway, right now I've got 500,000 plugged in. Could that be half? Maybe. I would guess more likely, you know, we're in the 350 to 450 range in terms of the replacement there, but we won't know until we actually get some real numbers from the contractor. Right now,
and just so the commission knows, the windows that we're talking about, first of all, how many approximately are there?
I think we're talking about something along the lines of 36 different openings.
And these windows that were installed now 27 years ago, we're not replacing them, was not part of the initial scope. Of course, you know, we were trying to replace everything that absolutely had to be replaced. But if I understand you correctly, what you're saying is, and I think Deb, if you want to join in, that these windows, these 30 odd windows that we did not have slated to be replaced are not in good shape and are likely to be in failure state relatively soon. Is that correct?
I don't know if I would use the word failure. They are old. Some of them don't work very well. I think just as part of the previous study and putting the documents together, I think the thought was more that if the windows don't really operate, it doesn't matter to have operable windows once the new mechanical system is there. Whereas putting new windows in, there will be the opportunity to have them operate well. I think trying to take windows of this vintage and find the appropriate parts from a company that's no longer in business and get them to work is something that is difficult to do. The insulating glass in some of the windows had failed. So that's why we had a plan to replace the larger panes, like the one in the photo on the left on the screen. The large windows tend to have that kind of failure of the glass clouding up. So the scope and the documents had been to replace that glass. But yes, the better thing to do if the money is available, and now that the project has come in at such a low price, there is the opportunity to upgrade for the more comprehensive project to go ahead and replace the windows.
And this would not affect the time frame of completing the project. Would that be accurate?
That's the indication that we're currently getting from the contractor, although we haven't had those specific pieces. The idea has been, Jack, as you know, because we were initially thinking, you know, with the schedule, would we need to try to come to the commission with a kind of not to exceed number to still try to get this done and complete with the rest of the project. So I think at this point, that is the idea. But I also wouldn't be surprised if we ran into some issues that the window replacement end of the project might continue a little longer than substantial completion on the rest of the work.
So we've talked to a few window manufacturers, and the contractor is pricing a few different manufacturers just to get competitive pricing, and so they'll know that they're competing with others. So we met with Anderson, and we met with Marvin, and one of the first questions I asked them, just because I was afraid that there might be a long lead time issue given the way the status of construction these days and material shortages and whatnot. So I asked them about lead times, and both of them were saying there's like a 5 to 6 week, I think it was, lead time on getting the windows after approval. So that's a good answer. I was afraid it was going to be longer than that. So that it certainly looks to be very doable.
So if we were to act on this request at our February meeting, the windows could still be replaced in May, June?
That is the idea, yes.
Okay. Again, just to make sure that I'm clear and everyone else is clear, we did have money in the budget to test all of these windows and determine if any of them on a case-by-case basis needed to be replaced. But one of the things that we're talking about here is not spending that money because we think we know what the result will be, and rather making sure that the entire building envelope is in an excellent condition. That's that where we're going, Evan?
Yeah, and Jack, I did a kind of a rough, window testing these days is, a decent price is probably about $3,000 a day, and they might test 2 windows in a day. So kind of doing the math, if we were to literally try to test every window here, just the testing alone could be, $30,000 or $40,000. So this seems like a reasonable approach, given the age of these windows and the newer windows that we're considering, the Anderson and the Marvin, have had significant strides in betterments for these types of windows.
Okay, so before we move on to the rest of your presentation, I do want to ask the commission members if you have any thoughts or comments on this issue.
I do have a question. This is Kelly. I was wondering if this included the decorative windows that we can see in this, or is it really just those plain panes that we can see?
It would include the decorative one. So that's just an applied grill on the exterior, and then there's another on the interior. It's not individual triangular pieces of glass, but yes, they will match that detail. And for the doors, the entry doors that are the dark bronze, and I don't know offhand if that is the original door and why the door was bronze rather than the same color as the other metal, but we can look at that. in terms of what the color should be when we replace the doors.
Yeah, so in terms of the durability of these doors, right, we're talking about a public building, a lot of use. This is akin and along the lines of school building. You want bomb-proof kind of hardware and assemblies for especially the main kind of entry doors. So you know, that is good reason enough to do these kind of storefront doors. However, it's likely worth, you know, doing a color match so that this all looks a lot more homogeneous and less like a replacement that you currently have.
Any other thoughts from the commission members on whether we should be pursuing this replacement of additional windows?
It's Andrew. I've got a question. Is it worth looking into maybe making it more as architecturally improved windows, or are we just looking at replacing kind with the standard storefront windows?
Deb, what are you thinking?
So the windows they're all wood windows with a factory painted aluminum cladding on the outside and field painted on the inside. And when we started looking at what we would replace them with, I think that is the best solution to get the same appearance. To go with an all aluminum window would probably have a chunkier look and be sort of a different size window that would be more difficult to just put back into these openings. So this is a quality window to go with the aluminum clad wood.
Not to mention if we were to consider going with an aluminum metal window system, curtain wall, storefront system, the lead time on those types of things are 16 weeks minimum from approved shop drawings and whatnot. So we definitely would not be doing this during the same time frame. So that's a completely different matter. And what this does is it takes advantage of general conditions that we already, you know, have with a general contractor on site, right? It's just more work that they're doing within that same amount of time. So there's kind of, at least in theory, some significant savings by trying to fold this into this project.
Okay. Any other comments or questions from commission members, or should we have Evan complete his presentation? All right, Evan, keep going.
Sure. So this is a very exciting shot. You are looking at here is another potential change that we are considering. Over on the literacy center side, there is a exterior stairway that goes down to the basement. Down at the bottom landing, there is a drain that the 1993 edition drawings call for to get connected to an adjacent storm structure. It's clear that connection never happened. This came to our attention after one of these rain events that we had, and that this area drain had backed up and had standing water. So we've opened this up. What we've actually found in here is dirt, organic matter, roots, leaves, and the like. So it appears that even a dry well was not installed previously. So while we're fixing other aspects of the library, it makes sense to address this here. So that's one of the potential changes that we currently are looking into, have the contractor price. So as of Yesterday, we were actually starting some roofing work, and here you can see some of the old materials from this lower roof here coming off the building and getting stacked up. Again, this is where that's that roof that's been stripped, and then towards the front or Main Street side. And then we've got some started some work on the 4th floor. So this staff area here, folks have been relocated down to the conference room on the 2nd floor to allow the contractor to now get in and start to remove the ceiling tiles. And this is kind of the start of our HVAC work, right? The major interior work that will be running above ceilings, traveling down to lower floors, and getting over to rooftop units and other things that we need to. Questions relative to progress or anything we've seen so far? Okay, with that, I will come over to
So change proposal log?
the change log, and what Jack had really asked me to do was to try to come up with kind of what all potential changes at this point. So I'll try to. So starting off, and these PCO numbers are actually not, we don't have any formal PCOs from the contractor at this point, but we knew while we were completing design drawings that we had accessibility upgrades that were going to be required. Variant requests were submitted to Mass Architectural Access Board by the architect and their consultant on behalf of the city. We have been granted some the variances that we were looking for some of the historic aspects of things that we were looking for relief not to change or address for those historic reasons. And then a whole host of other items that we were basically granted a variance for the timing or time frame to complete the required remaining accessibility upgrades. So even before this went out to bid, we have always been kind of carrying a rough value number of 200,000 for the scope for what we didn't get granted a full variance for. I think I've mentioned in probably 2 months ago that there are a couple of existing leaks. One is at the staff lounge, and there's currently kind of flooring carpeting that's been ripped up in an area there. And then there's another on that same, I'm sorry, I believe on the lower floor in the general stack area. So we have been awaiting for the roofing work to complete, which is the likely culprit of the staff lounge leaks, but we won't know until we've actually got a new roof on, whether the culprit is the roof or we need to do further investigations. So based on those 2 areas, I've got kind of plug numbers, and this estimate, yes or no, the asterisk basically means this is a order of magnitude estimate. These are not based on any real PCOs or costing from that. So I have placeholders of $5,000 kind of for each location. That should be enough there. We had a modification to some light fixtures. This is based on RFI and response. Contractors pricing that, and at least the initial numbers seem to come in that we're probably going to be right around $1,000 for that necessary change. This window replacement, we were just reviewing and talking about. Again, I've got a $500,000 plug number. I would not expect that it would be greater than that, and hopefully significantly less. This dry well replacement at that basement landing that we were just talking about. Again, so I've gotten kind of a rough number from the contractor. I kind of had 15,000 for this. He seems to think that they should be able to do what they need to do for 10,000. But again, we're going to get some real pricing on that. We had some fan coil units. So on the second and third floor, there's a special, there's an area of the stacks that does not have dropped ceilings or soffitted ceilings like elsewhere in the library, in that there's really basically the underside of metal deck and some perforations that are there. So we needed to consider changing two of the fan coil units that were planned to be ceiling mounted and hung, and changing them to floor mounted units so that they'll actually work in those spaces. And again, initial contractor pricing, that may be as much as a $5,000 change to go to the different units and potentially do some patching and other things. But again, we're getting some real numbers on that. Mobile book drop repair. So the scaffolding that I showed you earlier is not complete. That will also continue around and over our main entrance and wrap around for the repairs that need to go. When they do that, that will block existing book drop that's at that main entrance. So we were looking at options, and the library actually has a mobile book drop that was just not functioning. There was some lock repairs and whatnot. The contractor has fixed and rectified that, and I have a plug number of about $800 for that scope of work. And then we've just kind of recently identified, relative to some of our staff relocation and whatnot, that we have some miscellaneous phone lines that we need to try to put in to facilitate the relocated staff, as well as some IT connections. And we are just starting to review the scope of what's needed there. And again, I've got kind of a plug number of $8,000. So when you take all of these order of magnitudes and understand that we're talking about, you know, $500,000 here and 200 there, all totaled, we're looking at $734 or $35,000 potentially. And original construction contingency before the bid, we had 700,000 starting out early on in probably DD, and then as we developed documents and got better numbers, that increased, so that just before bid day, we had a little over $1 million in owner's construction contingency. After bids were in, we realized additional savings that in the budget was distributed, some to soft cost contingency, but adding another 800,000, so that right now our construction contingency stands at $1.85 million. And if all of the numbers that were order of magnitude ballparks above were realized as changes, that would still leave over $1.1 million for contingency for remaining in the project. So the only other items, there were some furniture, some equipment and furniture purchases and rentals for things like mobile book shelves to be able to facilitate some of the moving and phasing that needs to go on for the project. And I have talked with Jeremy just generally about sharing information on all of the project costs to date and whatnot. So for next month, I will also have a separate line item. This is outside any kind of construction contract, but still would likely be a project cost that I would expect that you folks would like to know about and have us continue to track throughout the project.
Okay, thank you. Any commission members have questions or comments on the change proposal log? Obviously, the good news is we can afford to do these things, but we have policy decisions to make, and we'll make them at the appropriate time. Okay, other than paying the bills, anything else that you want to update us on, Evan?
I think that's largely it. I generally think that, you know, we have a good contractor and good contractor staff on the project, and at least the masonry sub and whatnot, the folks that are dealing with some of the cleaning that we've seen, definitely appear to know what they're doing and have the important things in mind. So I think we overall have a good group of folks on the project, and that will go a long way to continuing with a successful project.
Excellent. Deb, do you have anything else you want to add?
No, I think that's about it.
Okay, before we move from this project to just a preview of three other things, any commission members have any questions or comments? Okay, hearing none, then thank you all for related to the library project, and we will move on to some other business.
Great,
and
everyone.
We'll see you next month.
Yeah.
Night.
Okay. With regard to the gym floors at the two elementary schools, the council passed a bond issue, or actually an amendment to the bond issue for the middle school roofs in order to allow us to undertake this project. Correct, Jeremy?
Yeah, so last time we talked was just in advance of capital subcommittee voting and then the full floor committee voting to amend the Brennan-Wamsutta loan authorization. So on December 15th, the full council voted unanimously to amend the bond issuance to include these two floors. So what we're doing now is I'm working with Carol Brown in my office to come up with a designer RFP, which I alluded to last time, but Carol's actually just finished a class through the MCPO certification on designer selection. So we're working on that right now. And hopefully for the next meeting, we'll have a more detailed update for you. But as Jack said, one of the key roles that this commission plays is designer selection. So looking forward to getting that started with you all.
Yeah, so we may need a special meeting to spend our time on designer selection. We may not, but we'll certainly keep you posted on that because we would like to get this project moving along as quickly as we can. Jeremy, the fire department roofs.
Yeah, so with this, we had hoped on a little bit of a quicker schedule, but as it stands right now, the tack we wanted to take was to bring in kind of a construction consultant to help us design our RFP, which is going to inform some of our gym floor stuff. So we've been in conversations with this construction consultant and a few others to say, you know, how do we ask for what we want to ask for? And then we'll be able to write a designer RFP, go out to the street, and they'll help us evaluate the responses and come to this committee and advise this committee. The way we're doing that administratively, we needed some seed money. So before we got full loan authorization from the council, what we did was took $25,000 worth of our reserve for capital in the general fund. And council referred to committee last night and will vote on full committee on the next city council, municipal council, to move $25,000 of that into a fund that's been established for fire department roof repair. So this is kind of our seed money, our other financing sources before we go to bond for it. So Jack has been on those, some of those early conversations with this consultant, and we hope to have the money in place and engage with them before the end of the month to be able to write our RFP for a designer.
Yes, and this project is too small for hiring an owner's project manager, but we think that if we can get a consultant on board who can serve sort of as a mini OPM, that we will be well served, because we want to make sure that there's appropriate oversight, and we want to make sure that the designer selection process is appropriate. So there will be more on that when in another month or so, I'm guessing. And then finally, for the Attleboro Pawtucket Water Interconnect, the Conservation Commission is probably hearing the request for the stormwater permit right now. Jeremy and I had planned to attend that, but obviously this takes precedence, so we will not be. We'll check tomorrow to make sure that the Conservation Commission acted on this. We're hoping that they will act on it without having this have to go out for a peer review, but I'm not sure what the result will be. But this will need to get the stormwater approved for the interconnect. Also, tomorrow afternoon at 2:30, there is a minor site plan review committee meeting, which I will be attending, which will is the process in order to get the planning board portion of this taken care of. Our goal, of course, is to get this out to bid as soon as we can. And so these are two steps that we need to take before we do that. Anybody have any questions on the gym floors, the fire department roofs, or the Attleboro Pawtucket Interconnect? Excellent. So then we need to pay the bills. And so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 bills to pay. Unless there is an objection, we'll take them all as one vote. The library requisition has been recommended to us by our OPM, and the middle school roof requisition by our OPM and architect, actually the architect in the library as well. We have a couple other minor bills to pay, and we also have a bill for CDM Smith for the permitting that we just talked about. So unless there's an objection, a motion would be in order to approve all the bills.
Move to approve all the bills.
Second.
Any discussion? Jeremy?
All right, Terry?
Yes.
Jerry?
Yes.
Ed? Yes. Jackie?
Yes.
Andrew?
Yes.
Gail?
Yes.
Kelly?
Yes.
And Jack?
Yes. So that passes unanimously. So in a moment, we'll call for the motion to adjourn at 6:38. Just to remind you, we'll see you all in 2 weeks at the next school building committee meeting. Our meeting, next meeting of this group, unless we need a special meeting, will be on February 3rd. And then March 3rd would be the next meeting after that. So you can mark your calendars, and hopefully spring will be here before we know it. So is there a motion, Jackie, to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Jeremy?
Terry?
Yes.
Jerry?
Yes.
Ed? Yes. Jackie?
Yes.
Andrew?
Yes.
Gail?
Yes.
Kelly?
Yes.
And Jack?
Yes, and we are adjourned.
Thank you, everyone.
Good night, everybody.